As we headed into this offseason, the New York Rangers were definitely rumored to be making lots of trades, and so far, we have already seen them make a pretty big one, sending away Chris Kreider over to the Anaheim Ducks. And in today's video, we're going to talk a little more about that and really kind of dive into what kind of an impact this deal can actually have on the Rangers, and really and truly kind of why I think this was a great and kind of almost perfect trade for the Rangers. And at the end of the day, like I kind of talked about in my video, actually fully kind of breaking down this trade, I think it's a pretty win-win trade for both sides. But obviously, this being a Rangers channel, we're going to more focus in today's video just on the Rangers side of things. But I do think as a whole, from both sides, the Ducks side and the Rangers side, to me, it makes sense for both teams there because the Ducks are obviously a young, rebuilding team who, made some progress this past season there, but are still a little bit out from being a true kind of playoff caliber team, I would say. So adding in a guy like Chris Kreider who can potentially, be a great top 6 caliber veteran winger who can, be a solid two-way guy, help kill some penalties there, bring some veteran leadership, is obviously a guy with lots of playoff experience, has been on multiple long playoff runs there, obviously made that cup final a while ago. So he has a lot of experience and can be the perfect kind of add for a young team there who also needs some goal scoring, right? That's a team who definitely struggled to score some goals. So adding in a guy like Kreider makes a lot of sense as he is definitely still capable, I would say, of potentially putting up, around 30 plus goals. It's still possible for sure. But on the Rangers side of things they're a team who are coming off of a very disappointing season. I think all Rangers fans can pretty much agree with me when I say that this past season there in 2024-25 was pretty disappointing. And whether or not you thought that roster from this past season was, built to be a true cup contender or not, I'm sure most people, whether you're a fan of the Rangers or not, would have kind of thought this team would at least sneak into a wild card spot, if not get one of those top 3 spots in the Metro. And of course, they don't end up doing that. They end up falling out of the playoffs entirely. And it was pretty overall just very sad to see. I mean, I was hoping for some playoffs there. Obviously, the Rangers are now in an interesting spot where they're going to have to make that decision on that first-round pick. But getting back to Chris Kreider, this was one of the moves that I thought needed to be made there. And I don't think this roster is terribly far away from getting back on track there, but this was one of the players that I thought made a lot of sense to trade away. And a lot of fans, some, I'm not saying a lot, but a good amount of fans definitely wanted to see him stay, and I fully get that. But the big kind of problem with keeping a guy like Kreider and this team kind of needing and wanting to make those big changes with this roster is you have a guy like Artemi Panarin, for example, who has that full no-trade clause. You have a guy like Mika Zibanejad who has that full no-trade clause. And other than that, other than those two guys, how many kind of necessarily big contracts you're looking to actually trade away, right? Because you have a guy like, let's say, obviously Vincent Trocheck there. He doesn't have that big of a contract. It's over like 5.6, something around there, right? You're not going to really get rid of him. JT Miller, you just traded for, so you're not getting rid of him there. You signed Igor to that massive deal. He's not going anywhere. You signed Fox, obviously a while ago, to that big deal. He's not going anywhere. He's your number one defenseman. So other than that, other than Kreider there and guys like Panarin and Zibanejad, maybe, but they have those no-trade clauses. So to me, that was really the only option available to really kind of trade away that would actually be someone opening up a lot of cap space. So it did make sense to me to trade away a guy like Kreider, especially with those kind of, circumstances there. And I think Kreider can definitely still be a quality player. I don't think he's kind of done, but I just think with those health risks there, obviously, because he definitely dealt with some kind of injuries last season there, and with him getting older there and kind of regressing a bit last season there, and I'm sure the injuries, of course, would have played a factor, but still, at the end of the day there, I think when you have the chance to get off of that contract for absolutely nothing and you actually get assets back in return and you get a decent looking prospect in Casey Terrence there, and we'll take a look at him in a second, but I think overall, you save that money there, move up 15 spots in the draft there, from the 4th round into the 3rd there, up 15 spots, not bad. You obviously, open up that $6.5 million in cap space, which I definitely think can go a long way and really kind of help this team be able to really make the additions that are necessary to kind of get this team back on track. And with opening up about 6.5 mil there, you're not terribly far off of, with just that cap space opening up alone there from the Kreider deal, to be able to go out there and sign a guy like a Vladislav Gavrikov or an Ivan Provorov. And I'm not saying those guys are going to sign for like 6.5 mil, but what I am saying is they're not going to sign for like $3.5 million more than that, right? They're not going to sign for a crazy amount more than $6.5 million. So to me, if you can get them on a somewhat reasonable deal, it is more than worth it to go out there and sign a guy like a Vladislav Gavrikov with this cap skyrocketing up. And I know there are obviously some kind of risks there, and you may have to overpay a little bit there because it is free agency, which, that's kind of normally happens there. But that is the exact kind of defenseman that I think can be a real difference maker for this team. And this team right now, you take a look at the guys on the left side there, there's not really kind of one true consistent top 4 caliber defenseman. And for a team who has, gone to multiple Eastern Conference finals in recent kind of history there, it's pretty incredible, right? Even a guy like Ryan Lindgren, at his peak there, at best, he's like a solid second pairing caliber defenseman at best, right? And that's kind of at his peak. So to me, if you can go out there and add in a real great left-handed defenseman that is a true top 4 caliber guy, like a Gavrikov, like a Provorov, that can really change this franchise. And I'm not saying that one guy like that added in there is going to, make this team a elite kind of top tier cup contender, but adding in one of those guys there and then making one more little addition on the back end as well, or you add in a really solid third line center there who can, obviously be a good two-way guy possibly, then your defense is really starting to come around there because I think, not only, it wasn't just on the kind of the defensemen last year that were kind of the problem defensively, it was some of the forwards. So if you can add in a solid kind of two-way third line center there, which I'm hopeful we do, then, the centermen I think we have there are very solid, two ways, guy like Trocheck, JT Miller, Sam Carrick, and hopefully a new two-way center, right? All those centermen there, and hypothetically, would all be pretty good two-way guys, right? Because the guys we have now, those three being Trocheck, JT Miller, and Sam Carrick, those are all pretty solid two-way guys. All guys who I'd be more than comfortable seeing on a penalty kill unit, for example. So, to me, I think if you can go up there, you add in a solid two-way third-line center, but you also get a guy like a Gavrikov for the back end there, then your defense can really maybe instantly kind of turn things around and at least become like an average or a bit above average defense core, unlike this past season where they were definitely below average. So it may not be an instant kind of, complete 180 there where they become a bottom tier kind of defense there to a top tier one, but adding a guy like Gavrikov there can definitely change things quite a bit. And with the new coaching staff coming in as well, we'll have to wait and see kind of, how players gel to the new system and all that kind of stuff there with the new coaches and a new defensive coach and all that kind of stuff there. And, the new head coach and Mike Sullivan. So things might, take some time there, or maybe they just turn out way better than we kind of ever could have thought. Who knows? That's the interesting thing with new coaches coming in there, right? You take a look at the previous two guys the Rangers had in their first years. They both go to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then the next year, both of them have some kind of disappointing years, right? We see Gerard Gallant in his second year lose to the Devils in Game 7 in the first round, and then you see, in Peter Laviolette's second year, he just does not make the playoffs as a whole. So sometimes first-year coaches can come in there and, the team, it just kind of, plays like they're just an absolutely elite team, and the next year they kind of fall back off. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there with that side of things, but I really do think you open up that cap space there, you are able to go out there and add in a guy like Gavrikov. That definitely could be exactly what this team is currently missing. And next up here, let's take a look at the prospect the New York Rangers got back in return in this trade, and that is, of course, center prospect Carey Terrence. And this is an interesting prospect. I think, obviously on paper, his stats don't look insane there. He's not some kind of, flashy offensive threat there, like maybe a Gabe Perreault. But what he is a pretty solid, kind of decent all-around, kind of two-way centerman who has some great skating ability. And that's kind of what he's known for, is his really good skating ability. He's a very fast and good overall skater there. That's kind of the main thing he's known for. He's 6'1", like I said, a center prospect there. He turned 20 this past May, was the captain of the Erie Otters this past season there, where he was a little bit under a point per game for kind of like the last 3 seasons there in a row there. He's pretty much kind of consistently been, not too far off point per game, but kind of just below it. So not bad numbers, but nothing too insane. But his play style definitely, to me, kind of would say he projects to potentially, if he does end up making the NHL, to become more than likely a bottom 6 forward, which, may not sound great, but if you can possibly turn this guy into a third line center, that can be a very valuable thing. So I think with a guy like this, he does have a lot of those kind of things that you want out of a third line center, right? He's a good two-way centerman, of course, 6'1", there has some decent size, plays with some energy there, has a bit of kind of toughness to his game there. Obviously not some crazy hitter, but, definitely has a bit of toughness to his game there, I would say. has that great speed, which is a nice bonus there, of course. Likes to drive the net, so I think overall the offensive game may not be crazy, but it's decent enough there. And if he can kind of turn out to have a really great kind of defensive game possibly and, become a really solid kind of grittier, tougher player, then he definitely could potentially crack out a nice long career in the NHL. It's probably not going to be in a top 6 role because the offense isn't quite there, but the all-around game seems pretty solid there. He's a former second-round pick, so a pretty highly touted prospect. Won gold with Team USA at the U18s and the U20s, so has obviously been a part of Team USA there at the junior levels. So to me, he seems like a pretty solid overall prospect. And I definitely am excited to see what he can possibly do this upcoming season, potentially with the Hartford Wolfpack. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on today's video. Do you agree with my take on thinking it's a pretty good overall trade for both sides there? Do you agree, disagree? Do you like the trade, hate the trade? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. You can grade it if you want as well. A+, B+, B-, F. Let me know your thoughts, of course. And also, do you like that prospect in Carey Terrence as well? It's a pretty interesting one. Obviously not a flashy one, but a pretty interesting prospect overall. And also, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content, as I do post every single day a video about the Rangers. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.